Chairman Nadler, and members of the House Judiciary Committee, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to consider this issue, which is of such deep concern to the American people. On June 22nd of last year, this House of Representatives listened in horror to the sounds of children sobbing. They were begging to see their parents, their relatives. They were afraid. They had been torn from their mothers, their aunts, their families. They had been put in cages, and they were weeping. Across the country, Americans heard the same desperate voices. How could this be happening in America? Up to 3,000 children were separated from their parents in this period. But the truth is, this is not a new problem. The laws that created this crisis were passed in 1952. Title 8, Sections 1325 and 1326 of the US Code make illegal entry and illegal re-entry criminal offenses. But the truth is, until 2005, these laws were rarely prosecuted. Immigration was handled by immigration authorities, not prosecutors. It was a civil affair. Then, in 2005, the Bush administration initiated a policy demanding prosecution of illegal entry and re-entry. And the Obama administration continued this policy. This is a bipartisan problem. But both the Bush and Obama administrations allowed prosecutors to exercise discretion. They were not forced to prosecute parents or seekers of asylum. But then on April 6th, 2018, everything changed. Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced a new zero-tolerance policy that mandated prosecutors pursue criminal charges in all cases of illegal entry, regardless of parental status, regardless of asylum status. Now, a settlement agreement from 1997 limits the government's ability to hold children in criminal custody with their parents. So the government began separating children from their families. Now, we might draw some comfort from the fact that a court has since ordered the government to reunify these families and given them a timeline of 30 days. But we should not draw too much comfort from this. Over a year later, the government still has not reunified many of these families. The results are almost too cruel to be believed. Thousands of children remain separated from their parents, many suffering anxiety, loss of appetite, sleeplessness, aggression, depression, self-harm. All this the result of the actions of our tax dollars. And even for those that are reunited, this sort of trauma may cause long-term harm to their emotional and cognitive growth. Polling during this time revealed that family separation was deeply unpopular. Only around 25% supported it. Even supporters of the president were outraged. Americans were horrified at the cruelty being carried out by our government with our money in our name. The prosecution for illegal entry is also deeply unfair to the people prosecuted, many of whom come to America seeking asylum, and here they find yet more persecution. Let me tell you what this persecution can look like. One man escaped torture in Eritrea, and in the first country to which he fled, the police poured gasoline on his house and threatened to burn it down. In the second country, police beat him and extorted him and threatened to return him to the country where he had been tortured. So he fled through Latin America to the United States, and he sought out the Border Patrol. He explained his experiences, his fear of torture in Eritrea, and his request for asylum. He might have thought that he had finally found a refuge, a land of liberty. Instead, he was prosecuted and convicted for illegal entry. After he served his sentence in a federal prison, he finally saw an immigration judge. This judge interrupted the hearing halfway through to grant his asylum claim. It was obvious it should be granted, but America had to punish him first. Now, asylum seekers are doing what is right. In fact, the law requires that they physically arrive before they can claim asylum. But illegal entry laws do not make exceptions for people with asylum claims. Let me reiterate what this means. Under the law, a person seeking asylum can be prosecuted just for showing up. Their trial and conviction can then be used against them in their asylum hearings. And then, even if they're granted asylum, they must start their life in America with a criminal record. Now, as cruel as these effects are, and as deeply as they offend the American character, a concerned citizen might think there was some strong argument for the criminal prosecution of illegal entry. But this is not the case. First, we should remember the well-established fact that undocumented immigrants commit crimes at a lower rate, at a far lower rate than the population at large. Let me repeat that. If the concern were the safety of residents, it would make more sense to prosecute and deport citizens than undocumented immigrants. In fact, illegal entry prosecution makes us less safe. Over half of all federal criminal prosecutions are now immigration prosecutions. And along the southwest border, in June of 2018, 94% of federal prosecutions were for immigration crimes. Now, that's not other crimes committed by immigrants. That's just for the so-called crime of showing up. Now, the data shows that as immigration prosecutions have increased in these areas along the Southwest, non-immigration prosecutions have dropped. So federal prosecutors are using their resources just chasing the crime of showing up. Now, furthermore, it doesn't seem to work as a deterrent. Several analyses of its effectiveness have either concluded that it does not deter effectively, or at least that its effectiveness is highly questionable. And it's expensive. Very expensive. In 2014, before the Trump explosion of the issue, one analyst put the yearly incarceration price tag at $1.3 billion. It's inhumane, ineffective, unnecessary, expensive. Even if the American people were cold at heart, even if they could not hear the cries of children in cages, even if they could not feel in their hearts the breaking of the hearts of parents torn from their children, even if they could not see the hope of freedom in the eye of a man hounded by police until he reaches our shores, they would expect more. We would expect a criminal law to make us safer, not to put us more at risk. Now, some people may say that this is a problem of the executive branch. After all, it was presidential pressure that started this enforcement. It was presidential pressure that sustained it. It was presidential pressure that removed discretion. It was presidential reticence that dragged its feet in response to the court. But the truth is, our Constitution entrusts Congress, entrusts you with setting the rules for immigration. Now, as long as there is a crime on the books, presidents will try to win political points by prosecuting the powerless and the undeserving. And as long as there is a crime on the books, prosecutors will jump to enforce it. But it falls to you to put that crime on the books or to take it off. We ask you to take up the mantle of leadership the Constitution entrusts to you. We ask you to repeal sections 1325 and 1326 of Title VIII and return immigration enforcement to civil law where it belongs. Thank you.